Welcome, everybody, to today's lunch break with the rabbi. Today is Friday, December 18th, 2020. It is the third day of the month of Teves, and, of course, a wonderful Eve of Shabbat, and therefore we'll have a quick review of the Torah reading as well. And it is also the last day of Hanukkah. Last night we lit the eighth candle on the menorah. We now have a final, complete menorah, beautiful, full lights, getting rid of all the darkness. And today is the final day of Hanukkah, which is called Zos Hanukkah. This is Hanukkah taken after the Torah reading that is read in honor of Hanukkah, when the day that they dedicated the tabernacle and the Holy Temple. We've now reached the number 8, the pinnacle of infinite, the concept of beyond, and living a level of infinite as the number 8 represents. I want to start off with a story, very inspiring story I just recently heard that happened this year. On the first night of Hanukkah, broadcast on Israeli television, was the menorah lighting from Tyumen, Siberia. The Chabad rabbi there, Rabbi Yerachmiel Gerelik, arranged for a 20-foot high ice menorah. Well, in Siberia, there's no lack of ice, so they were able to arrange that with ease. It weighed like 1 ton or something like that. Beautiful, tall, beautiful ice menorah. And they lit that ice menorah, and it was broadcast on Israeli television as the first welcoming the Hanukkah candle, and they were going from different places of the world, and they lit that ice menorah. The rabbi at the lighting ceremony began the story saying as follows. He says when he came down to Siberia several years ago, he was told that he's going to Siberia and his job is to warm up the cold, the ice that's in Siberia. He says, today we have taken the ice of Siberia and used it to warm up the world. We have harnessed the ice to utilize it for something productive instead of destroying it, but utilizing it to light. And he went on to explain, and he says, all of us, it's freezing cold. We just had a snowstorm, ice all over the place. And especially the light time that we're living in right now, it seems ice cold. Everybody's frost in their own little place, worried and concerned, a new surge, or this surge, and that surge. And over here, the question is, what do we do about it? How do we face it? And he said, we take the ice and we harness this time to be able to make it something of greater and more powerful. This was shown on Israeli television on the first night of Hanukkah as well, throughout places in Russia as well. Little did he know that somebody in Israel sent this video to a friend of theirs in Tyumen, Siberia, and said, hey, look, what's going on in your little town? They lit this beautiful ice menorah. A day later, Rabbi Gerelik gets a call from the local Protestant priest. And he says, Rabbi Gerelik, I'd like to meet you by the menorah. And they come to the menorah, and the priest tells Rabbi Gerelik, I was forwarded the video and the message that you said about the Hanukkah menorah. And I'd like to tell you that this menorah is not just yours, but is also mine. And he looks at him and says, what do you mean? He says, my mother is Jewish. My grandmother is Jewish. Just because of communism, we were intermarried and interfaith, and I ended up Protestant priest. And this is my time. You inspired me to learn more about who my true identity is. We may be doing things we never know why, how, and where, and how it affects people. But amazingly enough, harnessing the ice brings great warmth. We see the same thing happen in this week's Torah reading. This week's Torah reading, Joseph, begins by interpreting the dreams that Pharaoh has. First, Pharaoh is looking for different people to interpret the dreams. Finally, the butler says, when I was a servant, serving time in jail by Potiphar, there was a young man who was a Jew, was a slave, always using these derogatory terms, hoping that Joseph wouldn't get any reward for what he did. And he told me what my dreams were. Not only did he tell me my dreams, but he told me the interpretation, not only mine, but mine of the baker as well. And Pharaoh pulls Joseph out of the ditch. He interprets the dreams, and as a good Jewish boy, he doesn't just interpret the dreams, but he also gives him advice. Pharaoh finds favor in the advice that Joseph gives and makes him the viceroy of Egypt. But he makes him the viceroy of Egypt, and with this, Joseph also marries Osnas, and who was an adopted daughter of Potiphar, who some commentaries want to explain was actually the daughter of Dinah, who she had from when she had a relationship with Shechem a few weeks ago. And over here, Joseph has two children. One child he names Ephraim, and one child he names Manasseh. Ephraim, the older one, was Manasseh, as he longs for his parents' home, and Ephraim means that God made him successful where he is. Joseph was giving us a message by naming his two children this name. Joseph was the first one of any of the tribes, of any of our forefathers, that had to be assimilated amongst non-Jews. He was the first one that lived amongst non-Jews and had to deal with them, so to speak. All the other forefathers were shepherds. Yes, they interacted with Laban, with Esau, but they were short periods. Their main objective was to deal with the cattle. They walked away from materialism. They dealt in a time of absolute spirituality. Even Abraham, who was in the forefront of teaching people about monotheism, but it was his directive, his way that it was teaching people. The first one who had to deal with, so to speak, in a give and take with non-Jews, idolaters, was Joseph. And Joseph over here teaches us what's the MO, what's our modus operandi, how do we work within exile, in a framework within exile? How are we successful within a framework of exile? And he teaches us the two codes. Number one is to remember where we come from. Remembering and longing for the place that we've always been. But number two, to be successful, to harness the cold, to harness Egypt, to utilize the exile that we're in and make it a place where we can be successful, not forgetting where we come from. It's very easy to fall prey to the exile and utilize it. The question is to make sure that we stay steadfast to our commitments and religion. The question is, do we remember where we came from? And Joseph teaches us the only way we can truly be successful in exile, the only way we can truly be successful amongst the non-Jews around us, is if we ourselves are committed. Non-Jewish people respect Jews who are committed to religion. If we're wavy and shaky, you lose your respect, not only in the eyes of the Jews, but in the eyes of the non-Jews as well. Joseph taught us the key to prosperity, the key to respect, the key to be able to move on with regardless whatever adversity comes your way. And Joseph was a person who met a lot of adversity from within with his own brothers and family, and from without with Potiphar and the people that he met with in Egypt. And he said, what is the way? What is my key to success? As we know that Joseph was an ish matzliach, a person of success, is Ephraim and Manasseh. Manasseh remembering where I came from, and Ephraim being successful within the place that I am. Realizing that wherever God sends us is a God-given mission. Realizing that we have a task to accomplish something greater than we can just imagine on our own. When we have these two messages alert with both of them, recognizing where we come from, identifying our core issues that we can be successful regardless of where we are, we then automatically become a Yosef Tzaddik, a Yosef Ish Matzliach. We become a Yosef the righteous and a Yosef who is successful, one who is able to overcome any adversity and eventually supply, as we find in this week's Torah reading, that Yosef was the one that supplied everybody, gave them everything they need. Hu HaMashbir, he was the one that was able to supply all the countries around and made Egypt the superpower who it was. We too are blessed with the blessing of Joseph. We are all the children of Joseph. We too can be those suppliers and givers and generous, the ones that can supply everybody with what we need. But number one is remember where we come from and harness every situation and utilize it for a God-given moment, making even the ice of Siberia the light of a menorah. God bless you. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a happy end of Hanukkah, utilizing the last few moments of Hanukkah when we have a completely lit menorah, utilizing it to be able to illuminate the dark, illuminate the people around you. Don't forget, Hanukkah doesn't end tonight. Let Hanukkah continue with you throughout the year, harnessing its light, its warmth, its joy and happiness for all around you. Good Shabbos, and see you on the other end. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a happy end of Hanukkah.